Taz, I did something so exciting today.
Oh my god, what?
I went to a cat rescue after work today because I'm going to adopt a kitten and I am
Oh.
so excited. To be honest, I don't know why I'm telling you this, like I haven't already sent you the pictures of the cat,
Yeah, I
but
know.
isn't she just so cute? I just absolutely love
She's
her.
so
I
cute. She's
feel
so
a little bit
cute and she's
bad.
so teeny.
She's tiny. She's absolutely tiny, but I feel a little bit bad because I was supposed to be going to see another cat at a different rescue tomorrow. But now seeing this one
Mm.
today, I'm like, oh, I kind of want her. And I like girl cats. I'm like a girl cat girl.
Oh, is it a boy cat tomorrow?
Yeah, boy cat tomorrow. And then the one I went to see today was a girl.
Yeah, I feel like you're a girl cat mom, not a
I
boy cat
am.
mom.
Well, I had, like, growing up, I've always had cats. And my mum is like a boy cat mum. So she always has boy cats. But all of the cats that I've had have been girls, except one, which was one of Wendy's kittens. For the listeners, Wendy is the cat that I have now. I like ugly human names for animals, hence Wendy. But she had kittens, and I kept one of the boy kittens, and I had him for like 2 years, and then he got run over. I'm gonna stop letting my cats out because
Oh,
it's not good anyway. Apparently, to be letting your cat out. There's many benefits to keeping your cat inside, and if you give them like proper enrichment, all the toys, play with them, they'll be fine. So I think I'm gonna keep them in.
yeah.
So,
But
but
that's
yeah,
exciting though. Little
I'm
kitten.
excited. I
So
have names in
cute.
mind. Would you like to hear them?
Oh my god, yeah.
They're so ugly. I just love like ugly names for like
Same
animals.
though.
They are Marge.
Marge.
I just feel
Yeah,
like she looks like a
love.
Marge. Marge, Wilma, or Winnie.
Oh, to be
I
fair, I
like
like the W because then you'll have two W's.
DW's
Wilma
Kardashian
and
vibes.
Wendy.
Wilma and Wendy. Winnie and Wendy.
Oh, Winnie is a cute name as well.
Yeah, I like Winnie. That is cute. But my sister's dog is called Ginny, and she was like, we can't have like a Ginny and a Winnie. And I was like,
Oh, that is true. I feel like Wilma is good. Wilma and Wendy.
I love Wilma. Wilma's so cute.
Oh,
It's such an
yeah,
old person
so
name. Like, I
cute.
just love cute little tiny animals with old people names.
Oh, me too. Like I have a full notes page for like animal names for
Do
like
you?
any prospective dogs. Yeah, and on there it's like Winston.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Wilbur. Like all those
Winston is,
names.
to me, Winston is like a English bulldog. Should be called Winston.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or like a boxer.
Yeah, a boxer's a good one. Yeah. Boxers are
Yeah, yeah,
crazy
yeah.
dogs though. Like they are so energetic. Like they
I
just go
know. They're
crazy.
so cute and cuddly though. But your kitty seemed pretty feral, I must say.
Oh, well, she is a stray. So like the
Yeah.
whole family were strays. She's only 7 weeks
Oh.
old. And
Oh.
yeah, she's pretty scared. So she was hissing so much. Like everything you like, if you just went anywhere near her, if you looked at her, she would just hiss at you. But she wasn't like aggressive, she wasn't like biting or scratching. So I feel like she's just scared, you know?
No.
She's not aggressive,
Yeah.
she's just scared.
Yeah. As soon as you picked her up, she was like, oh, okay.
She was fine. Yeah. Guys, as soon as I have Wilma, I'll show you guys. I'll bring her on an episode and you can
Oh
see
my God,
her.
please. Yeah. That'll be so good.
So good. I'm so excited.
All right. Let's get on with today's episode. I feel like we rambled enough and you guys can look forward to Wilma in a future episode. I feel like we've just kind of blessed the name Wilma now and that's
We
it.
have.
Like,
Yeah, I agree.
unless Liv has a massive change of heart, this kitten is called Wilma.
I love that. Named live on air. Welcome to the So Cultured podcast,
where we explore science and tech unfiltered.
We're your hosts, Liv and Taz, two girls who love STEM and spilling the tea.
Each season, we take on a new theme, whether it's busting conspiracy theories, celebrating women in STEM, or breaking down the science in your favourite sci-fi films.
And of course, in every episode, we spill the laboraTEAAA,
where we share your wildest stories from the world of science.
Let's get into this week's episode of So Cultured.
In the cold of a Scandinavian forest, a woman wraps her coat tighter, snow crunching underfoot, calculations clutched in her hand, scraps of paper and an idea that would alter the world forever. Her name is not yet known by most, not in the headlines, not in the war rooms, not even in the official records of history. But in her mind, she is unlocking something vast. Inside the core of the atom, she sees a secret hidden, a secret that could light cities or completely erase them. This
Mm.
is the story of a physicist who was overlooked, a woman whose discovery was awarded to a man. And her name is Lise Meitner. She might not be widely known as Einstein or Curie, but her contributions to science and to history are no less profound. And at a time where the world doubted women's ability to lead in scientific discovery, she defied every expectation. Her insights helped reveal the process of nuclear fission, one of the world's most significant breakthroughs of the 20th century. But her story is more than a scientific triumph. It is a story of resilience in the face of exile, of commitment to truth over recognition, and the choosing of peace when the world turned to war. And the science of fission lies at the very heart of our ability to harness nuclear power, whether for weapons, energy, or some unknown future use. None of it would be possible if one of the world's most brilliant scientific minds hadn't unlocked its secrets.
Mm. Oh my gosh, this sounds so exciting, and I have heard of her for sure, but I don't know
Mm.
anything about what she's done. I don't know anything about her story at all. Wasn't taught anything about her, just like a lot of the women on this series. I think the only one who I've like truly heard 50% of their story was Rosalind Franklin, to be honest. I
Yeah,
remember
me
learning about
too.
her in my GCSE biology, but with that in mind, let's, as we always do, go from the beginning. Who was Lise Meitner, and like where did she come from? Where was she born? All of that jazz.
Yeah, I completely agree with you as well. Like before this series, I obviously heard of a few people, but yeah, didn't really know their story. So I found out a lot from doing this series. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Elise Meitner, who would obviously later shorten her name to Lise, was born on November the 7th, 1878, in Vienna, and she was the third of 8 children in an upper middle class Jewish family. And her father, Philippe Meitner, was a lawyer and one of the first Jews permitted to practice law in Austria. And her upbringing in Vienna's vibrant
Mm-hmm.
Leopoldstadt district was intellectually rich, and every child in the Meitner household received a very strong education. So even as a child, Lise's curiosity really set her apart. At just 8 years old, she kept a notebook of scientific observations under her pillow. So she was captivated by things like light, the changing of colors on oil slicks, and the patterns of reflection. And obviously, these are all very subtle mysteries of physics. But obviously, the education system really offered her very little in the way of formal training. So, girls' schools at the time really focus on domestic skills and languages, obviously, not science. But obviously, despite the limitations, Lise never lost sight of her dream. And her older sister actually went on to study medicine. So, she had a very good like foundation and like footsteps to follow in. So
Mm-hmm.
initially she trained as a school teacher, which is one of the very few career paths available to educated women, but obviously her true passion remained in physics. And in 1897 Austria finally allowed women to attend university. So Lise, she obviously sees that opportunity and she crammed years of misschooling into just 2. And then she passed her Matura exams, and in 1901 she enrolled at the University of Vienna, and she was actually the first female physics student at this
Mm.
university. So while she was there, she studied under the legendary physicist Ludwig Boltzmann, and his passion for science was contagious, and he treated Lise with respect, and his support and rigorous teaching style deeply influenced her scientific philosophy and like just her passion for science as well.
Mm-hmm.
And in 1906, Lise completed her doctoral thesis on heat conduction in inhomogeneous materials, earning her PhD in physics. And she was only the second woman in Vienna to do so. But as brilliant as she was, job opportunities were obviously scarce for a female physicist. Eventually, she was offered a job at a gas lamp factory, which was kind of a common destination for women with technical training, but her father actually encouraged her to dream bigger. And in 1907, Lise actually moved to Berlin to study further, hoping to work with a man called Max Planck, who was one of the leading figures in theoretical physics.
Yes, and I feel like we've all heard about Max Planck. Maybe because of the Max Planck Institute, but I feel like we have all heard about him. But I have noticed that in these stories we like see a lot of, or we've heard a lot about men kind of taking credit for their female counterparts' work. But I've also noticed a common theme of like men in these women's lives, like whether it's their husbands or their fathers, kind of encouraging their partner or their daughter, or whatever it is, into pursuing their work. And I love that because probably at this time, 1906, you could probably almost like needed your husband's or your father's like encouragement to actually have the courage to like pursue these kind of careers. So I love that from them. And obviously you spoke about how Lise kind of overcome these limitations during her academic journey, I guess. So how did she end up in the lab? Or how did she get into the lab?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that actually, because obviously she moved to Berlin, but German universities at the time did not admit women into their laboratories. But Lise's brilliance obviously spoke for itself, because Planck, who had previously opposed women to even attend his lectures, actually made an exception for Lise. And not only did he allow her to like sit in on his classes, but he eventually brought her in as an assistant.
Sorry, why do we have a whole institute named after this man if he didn't let women come to his lectures?
Well, I just feel like that's such a common theme. Like,
what the hell?
The most brilliant minds in science who are men generally were quite misogynistic. So
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that is crazy.
But it's a sign of the times, as Harry Styles would say.
I don't get the Harry Styles reference, but sure. Do you know what? I don't know if I know any Harry Styles songs. Watermelon? Is that his one?
Yeah, Watermelon Sugar.
That's such a bad song. I hate that song so much.
No, Sign of the Times is the one that goes, watch out, it's the sign of the times.
I don't know this one. I don't know if it's my lack of music knowledge or your singing.
I'll send it to you, because I would say that's one of his like biggest songs.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to listen to it after.
I think it was a turning point in his like solo career, that song.
Wow. Okay, I'll have to have a listen.
Coming out as like Harry Styles fan over here. Anyway.
You are.
At least we'd know Harry Styles would back these women.
Yeah, he would.
Okay, so whilst Lise was in Berlin, she met a man called Otto Hahn, and he was a radiochemist with a real growing reputation. So the two struck up a scientific partnership that would actually last more than 3 decades. So they began working together in kind of like a makeshift lab, a former carpenter's workshop in the basement of the Chemistry Institute, since women were obviously still barred from the official lab spaces.
Oh my god, yeah. I was like, wait, why are they in a makeshift lab? But that makes sense. I was like,
I know, it's just I actually think it's outrageous. Like, we're gonna make a makeshift lab in the basement because you're not allowed in a normal lab. Like, that's crazy.
That is crazy, yeah.
But yeah, despite the cramped quarters and the lack of pay, Lise's enthusiasm and talent propelled the research forward. So together they explored things like radioactive decay, they discovered new isotopes, and they refined techniques in nuclear chemistry. And in 1912, both Hahn and Meitner joined the newly established Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Chemistry, whilst Meitner still lacked official status and received no salary, but she still kept working, obviously driven by the science itself. Then World War I broke out and Hahn was conscripted, so Meitner volunteered as a nurse, with X-ray units on the front line, which I think slay, like, because X-ray and radiation that she was working on was kind of similar, so like she still worked on something similar to what she was researching, which I thought was cool. But obviously, working on the front lines, this experience really left a deep mark on her, and she ended up returning to Berlin in 1916, rededicating herself to her research. And in 1917, she was actually appointed to head the physics section at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, becoming the first woman in Germany to hold such position. And she was essentially the equivalent of like a professor, but obviously it wasn't recognized in the same kind of way. And then that same year, she and Hahn discovered a new element. So for this work, she was awarded the prestigious Leibniz Medal.
Wow, that is so crazy. Like, imagine discovering a whole new element.
I know.
Like, that's insane. I just get happy when my code runs. I can't imagine, like, discovering a whole new element. That's insane. And I'm also really happy that she was, like, recognized for it, right? Because, yeah. I mean, again, I feel like we say this every episode, but, like, a big theme is obviously them not being recognized for it. So I love that she was recognized for it and she got her medal. She earned that. But I was just thinking the whole time, like, when you were talking, like, wasn't this when the war was still going on in Germany? Did this not kind of, like, affect her work?
Yeah, so it was wartime in Germany, and that 100% affected Lise. So throughout the 1920s, she actually became one of Europe's leading physicists. And in 1922, she even identified a new phenomenon, which was atoms emitting electrons when struck by radiation. And I feel like in the time of war, we really see women kind of, and we spoke about it before on this podcast, where World War One and World War Two were kind of like a space where, obviously because men were being conscripted, space where women were able to take on different roles. And so then obviously it affected Lise in this way, because obviously she became one of, and that's not to say that because the men left, she became one of Europe's leading physicists. Obviously she had the track record and the scientific mind to do that. It's just that it kind of paved some space for her to enter that realm a bit more. And obviously she was making real breakthroughs. But obviously the phenomenon of like atoms emitting electrons when struck by radiation, this effect was later attributed to Pierre Auger despite Lise's previous publication. So obviously that was another instance where her contribution was massively overlooked. And in 1926, she also shattered another barrier by becoming the first woman in Germany to be named a full professor of physics, this time at the University of Berlin. And her lectures were packed, and she mentored some of the brightest scientists of her era, and among them were students who would actually go on to win Nobel Prizes themselves. And her insights and her techniques helped lay the foundation for the discovery of the neutron, and later for the theoretical understanding for nuclear reactions. But obviously, as we mentioned, it was a time of war, and science would not be enough to protect her. So, with Hitler's rise to power in 1933, Lise's world began to crumble. Although she had converted to Christianity and was not religious, under the Nazis' racial laws, she was still considered fully Jewish, and her university position was revoked, and she was stripped of her public posts. So she continued working under increasingly precarious conditions, shielded briefly by her Austrian citizenship. But when Germany annexed Austria in 1938, she actually became stateless, and a Jewish woman in Nazi territory with no legal protection was really dangerous at that time.
Oh my God, that sounds so scary. That's absolutely crazy. And also even more crazy that, like, after all of the hard work that she done, all of the cool things that she done, it wasn't even her gender. Because obviously, like, you know, we're talking about times when women weren't even allowed in the labs, but it wasn't even her gender. But I guess it was kind of like her religion that actually ended up being the thing that stripped her of her position. That is insane. And just so, I can't even imagine how scary that must have been. But I mean, what did she do after that? Like, I don't know, did she get back to the lab?
Obviously, it was like a crazy time, especially in Berlin. And so she was in real danger. And Lise's friends and colleagues knew essentially that she had to escape. So with the help of Otto Hahn and Dutch physicists Dirk Coster and Adrian Fokker, she fled Germany. And on July the 13th, 1938, she crossed the border into the Netherlands, carrying only what she could manage: 2 small suitcases, 10 marks, and a diamond ring that Hahn had pressed in her hand in case she needed to bribe a guard, like at the border, essentially.
Wow. That's insane.
She eventually reached Sweden, where she began work at the Nobel Institute in Stockholm, and there she was reconnected with Niels Bohr and her nephew and physicist Otto Frisch. But her presence wasn't always received well. Mans Siegbarn, the director of the institute and fellow Nobel laureate, resented her presence and actually refused to provide a proper laboratory space, as we had already seen in Berlin. Obviously, she continued her work and she continued her correspondence with Otto Hahn, who was still over in Berlin. So that Christmas, Otto Hahn sent her data from a curious experiment where they basically bombarded uranium with neutrons, and it had produced a really strange result. So Hahn and Fritz Strassmann had chemically identified barium as the result of this experiment. And it's an element that is much lighter than uranium. So they were quite confused by this. So they wanted to ask Lise what she thought. So during a snowy walk through the Swedish countryside with her nephew, Lise and Otto used scraps of paper to calculate the reaction. And they cracked the mystery. They realized that the uranium nucleus had split into 2, a process that no one had ever observed before. A process that would obviously later be coined fission. And they calculated that the energy released was around 200 million electron volts. And it actually connected to Einstein's famous equation E = mc squared. And if you know anything about this equation, it essentially means that mass can be converted to energy. And that's exactly what was happening here when the uranium atom was split into barium.
Oh my gosh.
So they published their explanation in Nature in February 1939, and the world of physics was essentially transformed overnight. And Lise had helped unlock the power of the atom. And it was one of the most important scientific discoveries of the 20th century, especially at this time of history.
Wait, am I dumb? A great source of power. What, like the atom is a great source of power? I don't actually know what fission is, I'm not gonna lie.
It's basically where you split an atom into, you like fire neutrons at an atom, and then the atom splits in 2, and in doing so it releases loads of energy.
Oh, okay, yeah, you did just say that. I was like, I don't know if it's just like that simple, but okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I've just never heard of it before. Sorry.
What?
Sorry to interrupt this podcast, but I've just caught myself. Why does it look like I'm wearing a lab coat?
Oh, it kind of does, actually. Well, it's giving women in STEM, to be fair.
That is so
I actually
funny.
always think that about like big white coats sometimes, or like jackets that are white. I'm like, sorry, why am I wearing a lab coat?
That is actually hilarious. This is not actually, this is my sister's. She gave it to me and it's really comfy, but it literally looks like a lab coat.
It does. You came prepared for this episode.
I did. Oh, sorry, that's just actually...
I love how you just realised that midway through the podcast.
I think it's just because I just look at you, but then like I've just looked at myself and I was like, oh, it's because I'm so hot sat here, and I was like, is my makeup melting off? And I just looked at myself and I was like, are you wearing a lab coat?
All right, Lise Meitner, calm down.
I wish I was her, honestly. Anyway, sorry, going back to the episode, I was going to ask the question. What question was I going to ask? Oh yeah, okay. So obviously this process of fission is it pronounced fission or fission?
I think it's up to you. I say fission.
Okay, I like fission, so I'm going to go with that. Fission.
Okay.
It's obviously like a great source of power, like you've just said. But wasn't it also like the origin, or like it contributed or was involved in like the origin of the nuclear bomb?
Yeah,
I feel like I've heard that
100%.
somewhere.
So The news of nuclear fission, it spread rapidly during this time, and scientists in the US were alarmed by the implications and essentially began urgent research into kind of chain reactions and atomic weapons. And this led to the Manhattan Project, which was a vast secretive effort to build the world's first nuclear bomb. And Lise, she was invited to join the project, but she declined because even though she helped reveal the science, she would not help build a weapon. And when bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, she was reportedly devastated, though President Truman himself later introduced her as the little lady who got us all into this.
What?
But Lise rejected the association, and her
gosh.
work, she believed, had been in the pursuit of knowledge, not destruction. And later in life, she spent the post-war years really reflecting on the moral cost of science unchecked by ethics. And she was also openly critical of German scientists who had remained silent over the Nazi regime, and she never forgot the horrors that she had escaped.
That is so insane. I can't even imagine what that feeling must be like, because I mean, like she said, she was obviously never doing this with that intention. Do you know what I mean? That must just be such a crazy experience to just know that your science is being used in that way. I mean, I'm never going to do science like as incredible as she is. You know, my code is not going to devastate, well, it might devastate the world actually. But not in that way. But yeah, it's absolutely insane. But do you know what I find really funny is like how the men are really quick and happy to associate her with something negative. Like they'll be like, oh my god, you know, she's responsible for us for this, she got us into this. But I bet before that they weren't celebrating any of her achievements or any of her contributions to science. Do you know what I mean? Like if it's looking at it in a positive way, I bet she's just going to be ignored.
Yeah, and you are absolutely correct. So despite President Truman himself saying that she was the little lady that got us all into this, and I feel like this is unsurprising at this point of the series, but in 1944, Otto Hahn, who was the man that she was working on nuclear fission with, was awarded the Nobel Prize in chemistry for the discovery of nuclear fission. And Lise's name was nowhere to be found. And despite having provided the theoretical explanation and coining the term, and despite guiding Hahn's research for decades, she was excluded. She had actually been nominated 49 times across chemistry and physics, but the Nobel Committee failed to acknowledge her. And the decision sparked decades of controversy. So historians and scientists later pointed to bias, so disciplinary divisions between chemistry and physics, and even personal rivalries. And some members of the Nobel Committee actually lacked the expertise to fully grasp Meitner's theoretical contributions. So Max Perutz, Nobel laureate himself, called the omission unjust, while a 1997 article in Physics Today described it as a result of disciplinary bias, political obtuseness, ignorance, and haste. She was obviously gracious in public, but privately the omission to the Nobel Prize stung, and her exclusion is now widely seen as one of the greatest oversights in Nobel history.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. If I was her, I'd be pissed off. I mean, like, it kind of must be been a little bit bittersweet for her, because obviously she's probably happy for him, because this whole time Otto Hahn, he's been really helpful towards her. He's been really nice. He's looked after her, encouraged her, helped her flee and everything. So just like a mix of being happy for him, but then also, yeah, I mean, that must have hurt so bad.
Like it was a joint effort, essentially. So it should have been recognized as that.
Exactly. The thing is, these women, I mean, obviously they're better than me, but I'm just saying that because I would just be like, fuck this, I'm leaving academia. Like, I can't be dealing with this. I mean, that just does actually make me wonder, like, did she stay in academia after this, or did she leave? Did she ever feel like she actually got any recognition, or was that kind of like just the final thing?
Yes, she continued her work in Sweden. She joined the Nobel Institute for Physics, the Swedish National Defense Research Institute, and also helped develop Sweden's first nuclear reactor. And by 1947, she had a professorship at the University College of Stockholm and became a Swedish citizen in 1949. And in the final decades of her life, the world slowly began to catch up with her legacy. She received more than 20 scientific awards, and among them, she was awarded the Max Planck Medal, the Otto Hahn Prize, and in 1966, the Enrico Fermi Award from the United States, which seems, I think, a little bit this might be controversial, but I feel like it seems a little bit insulting or tone deaf, considering that those were men she closely worked with like throughout her entire life. Like, imagine working with someone on a paper and they got the Nobel Prize for it, but you didn't. But don't worry, in a few years you'll win a prize named after the very person who snubbed you for the Nobel Prize. Like, what? I mean, I'm so glad she won the prize, but also it just seems a bit
100%.
It's not a Nobel Prize, is it?
If you watch my face back when you were like reeling it off and then you said Otto Hahn, I was like, hold on, what? Because I agree. Like, I think that's not his fault, but
obviously not his fault. It's just tone deaf by whoever awarded that prize, to be honest.
100%.
But in 1968, though, she was named Woman of the Year by the US National Press Club. And in the same year, she died peacefully on October the 27th at the age of 89 in Cambridge, England. But in 1997, nearly 3 decades after her death, the periodic table gained a new element. Meitnerium. So element 109 was actually named in her honor, making her one of the very few women in history with an element to her name, which I think is really cool.
That is so cool. Yes, I love that. That is, that's one of the coolest things
I've heard.
It's
a shame that it was like 3 decades after her death, but it is what it is. And she's also got craters on the moon and Venus that bear her name, and institutions, schools, and laboratories around the world obviously honor her legacy. And Albert Einstein actually once called her the German Marie Curie. And her epitaph, which was written by her nephew Otto Frisch on her tombstone, reads, Lise Meitner, a physicist who never lost her humanity. Because essentially, Lise Meitner, she refused to be bitter, even as recognition eluded her. She believed in truth, in education, and obviously in peace. And today we remember her not just for her discoveries, but for the dignity with which she pursued them, because she stood in the face of injustice, exclusion, and obviously war, and she never backed down. And her life reminds us that science is not just about what we can do, but about what we can choose to do with what we know as well. So
that's so inspiring. I love that. Like, literally every single person that we've heard about on this series is just so incredible. And I was just like thinking in my head, like as you were talking, you were saying about how obviously all of these women, like despite maybe not being recognized, they carried on. And I was thinking in my head, like, oh, maybe that's like a really nice takeaway. But then I'm like, no, I just couldn't be that person. Like, my name doesn't go on a paper. I'm like, you better put my name on that paper, or I'm leaving, I'm quitting, I'm out of here.
Yeah. I feel like it's just different times though, isn't it? Like back then they probably felt lucky to just be contributing. Obviously it's an injustice in some ways, but like nowadays, if women weren't even allowed in labs, like there would be riots. So it's crazy.
I just think that is so crazy that women were literally not allowed in the labs. Like, are you that threatened by women? Like, what really, like, deeply, I mean, that is the reason. I'm sorry. Nobody can convince me otherwise. They just felt threatened.
Well,
must have been.
I don't know. I feel like the idea at the time was that men just saw themselves as superior. They were just like, oh, women can't do this.
But like physically down, what is the
mentally they
reason
can't do
for that? Do you know what I mean?
Who knows?
I mean, that could be a whole episode in itself, really, actually. So maybe we won't get into that. But yeah, anyway, I just think they're all incredible. What I will say, though, is that I find this so interesting that, again, in this story, we have like Hitler, World War I, World War II. It's just in every single episode because it's in next week's episode as well. Like, it's just in every single one. Like, I feel like at this particular time, women were just doing amazing things. And I do feel like it is what you said about, you know, when men were being drafted into war, it kind of paved the way for women to enter these spaces that previously men were like, no, you can't come into these. But then as soon as, men were kind of drafted into war, then they were finally given access
and I
to
think
these
it was a
spaces, and that's
time
when they did
where
incredible
people were
things.
really trying to reach for like new technologies as well to win the
Yeah.
war.
Yeah. Oh my
So
God. Yeah. Yeah.
there was obviously like, I guess I'm
The extra
assuming like
funding.
more funding and
Yeah.
like a push towards like finding that sort of stuff. So
yeah. So incredible. So incredible. Well, thank you so much for that, Taz. That was so interesting. For now, I think it's time to get into our laboratory for today's episode, where we have a very funny email from our listener. So let's get into it. But I'm worth it, 'cause I'll slip into your dreams tonight. Oh, so give me your So the tagline for today's email is, my PI is having a midlife crisis. So it reads, everyone says academia is full of eccentric personalities, but I swear my PI, he is in a league of his own. So he's in his mid-40s, but you'd think he was trying to cosplay as a grad student. He swears constantly in the labs, drops F-bombs in front of undergraduates, and loves to tell us stories about how he got wasted last night. One time he casually asked the group if we had any experience with drugs. He talks about his relationship drama like we're his therapists. We've heard about his messy breakups, his dating app horror stories, and at one point he showed us a photo of a girl he matched with and asked if she seemed emotionally stable. Our lab is made up mostly of PhD students and postdocs in our late 20s, so I think he sees us as his weird little academic friend group. He roasts other PIs constantly, calling them arrogant and assholes, and honestly, he's not wrong, but still, it's totally unhinged behavior coming from someone who technically writes our references. It's not that I dislike him. In some weird way, it's kind of refreshing to have a supervisor who is a real human, but there's this fine line between relatable mentor and a guy who overshares and trauma dumps during lab meetings. Sometimes I wonder if we're running a lab or a group therapy session in a shared office. Either way, I'm staying for the drama. But what do you guys think of this?
is it bad that my entire like response to this is this show about us? Because I'm a supervisor and low-key I'm unhinged.
No, I can imagine you are a bit unhinged.
Yeah, but obviously because I'm 29, I feel like I relate to like some of the PhD students a lot more than like some really senior PIs, but obviously I still have that supervisor status, or like I'm a manager, do you know what I mean? So I'm just listening to this like, lol, this is about me.
Just fucking play about us.
Imagine if someone from my work just
oh my
like
God, imagine it's one of your people. That would be hilarious.
I'm not on any dating apps, so it can't be me, actually.
Oh, there you go. Well, I feel like he obviously in his head still thinks he's like 29. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah, I was going to say mid-40s is a little bit pushing it, like, all right, calm down.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never met anyone in academia like this. Like everybody I know in academia, especially like PIs, are like dead serious. I mean, like my PI, he's like as probably non-serious as they get, but he's still very professional, but like he's a bit unserious. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I also think it like cringes me a little bit when you've got kind of senior PIs and they're trying to like, I don't know, cross a boundary or trying to be more relatable, and you're a bit like, ugh, don't talk to me.
It's like, what is the purpose? Like, what do you think they do it for?
I don't know. I think why would he be behaving more like this? For like better environment, friendly, in the sense that you feel that you can like confide in your PI about your work and stuff a bit more, because if you see them as like kind of unreachable senior PIs, then like you definitely feel like you can't reach out to them as much. So maybe it's a way of like trying to be relatable and trying to show like that you're a human and you're not just this really senior PI.
Yeah, but like it's giving they're taking it too far, and like it's giving they lay in their bed at night and they're like, why the hell did I say that? Because that would totally, I feel like this would be me as a PI. Like I'd be trying to be like really cool, like, oh, you know, just ask them about drugs, and I'd lay in my bed like, I don't do drugs, I've never done drugs. Why did I ask them that?
Literally, yeah. Like, or did you have a good time at the weekend?
But then I don't know, like talking about the relationships as well, like maybe he's just a bit of an insecure guy.
I think as soon as relationships come in, I think that's weird. Don't talk to me about your romantic relationships.
Yeah, I don't want to. It's like what I can't even remember what the gossip was about, but this still sticks in my head. We had a laboraTEAAA one day, and for some reason it started. Oh, it was about someone going around to their PI's house for like lunch or something, or like a party or something like that. And the thought of me going to my PI's house just absolutely icks me out. I don't want to see where they live. And that's what it's giving. Like, I just don't want to know anything about your personal life, especially with relationships.
Yeah. I don't know about you as well, but like even just talking about my partner at work, I find weird.
Feels inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because that's so stupid. Because I don't ever, like, if somebody else is doing it, I don't think like, oh, that's so weird. Why would you tell me? Like, I mean, it is weird if they're talking about like relationships, but if they're in like a healthy relationship. But to be fair, I do remember my PI, like when I was doing my PhD, and he would like sometimes talk about his wife, and I was like, you have a wife? Like, it's just
it's so weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just like, what do they talk about? I don't know. I don't know why it icks me out so much, but it's just like, it's a weird thing.
It's a weird
So then imagine hearing about like your PI's relationship drama. That is a weird scenario to be in. I wouldn't even know what to say. I guess it depends on like what he's telling her.
I think it's harmless at the end of the day. I just think it's a bit weird, and that he probably needs to grow up a little bit. Also, he's like mid-40s and he's like on dating apps. That's probably a reflection of like his maturity levels for his age.
I mean, I was going to make a comment about people in academia, but actually I'll leave that to your guys' imagination. I won't say anything else of that. All I'm going to say is like, do you know what? Like, it's not really that big of a deal, I don't think. Like, there's worse things your PI could be doing. If he's a good supervisor, at least he's bringing you some interesting stories. At least your lab meetings are... Because I do think it is nice to have conversation besides work and just lab stuff. Yeah. Because, like, during my PhD, me and my lab group, we would, like, go out for, like, drinks at the bar after work or whatever, and that was quite nice. But I guess it also depends on, like, what context is he doing this in. Is he doing it, like, quite literally in the lab meeting to the point where you don't get a chance to talk about your work? 'Cause if so, that's annoying. But if he's doing it just, like, in passing or when you go for a drink after a long day in the lab, like, it's not that big of a deal. At least he's giving you some entertainment. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think, like, that is a lot better than having a PI who is, like, really stuck up, really full of themselves, and just, you can't talk to them. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're so senior that they're just like, don't talk to me.
Yeah, I agree. So, an odd experience, I'm sure, but... harmless. And I'd just say just enjoy it. Like, get all the gossip while you can. Ask him about his dates. Ask him about the apps. Who's on it? What's his criteria? That would be interesting.
Yeah, and look, we all go through like a quarter midlife crisis at some point, so maybe just give him a bit of grace.
Cut him some slack. As long as he's a good scientist, he's a good PI, enjoy it, I say.
Yeah, I agree, actually. It makes a change for academia, in my opinion, because everyone is so highly strung. And like I say, when you were reading that out, I was like, is this show about us? Because I was literally like, why is that literally me in the lab? Like, I'm trying to be so Gen Z in the lab, and then I'm just like... Sometimes I cringe myself out. I'm like, babes.
I do find it interesting that like someone like this has stayed in academia because, there's not many people in academia like this. So welcome them with open arms, I say. Indulge him. Agree. Maybe not with the drugs thing, but...
No. Everything else, I think, is harmless. That's bit cringe, but harmless.
Yeah, I agree. So our advice, not that you asked for our advice, but we say enjoy it. Indulge him, enjoy it. He's not super, like, strict, so I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah. Also, if you're listening and you're like, you want to add your 2 pence, let us know in the comments, because we obviously aren't, what we say is not gospel. And a lot of the times, me and Liv get it completely wrong, and we like post the laboratory on like our socials or whatever, and all the comments say the same thing, and we're like, wow, we really said the opposite. So if you're listening and you're like, nah, babes, that is so weird. Please let us know in the comments, because that would probably be helpful to the listener. Yeah,
100%. So. Like maybe someone listening has a story about their PI where they were like exactly like this person's PI, and then it ended in like disaster somehow, or they've got like some funny story from it. So if that sounds like you, then you're gonna have to write in with your own story, or maybe you're the complete opposite and you do have a super strict PI in which case tell us about them as well. So if any of you guys have any laboratory that you want to share with us, don't forget that you can always use the anonymous link in today's episode or video description. But with that rounds off episode 5 of Overlooked. So we will see you guys in next week's episode. But before you go, please make sure that you go and give us a rating or review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to us on. It really helps us out, and we appreciate all of your guys' support. And of course, make sure you're following us on Instagram and TikTok at So Cultured Podcast. But with that, we will see you guys in next week's episode of Overlooked. Bye, everyone.